with 7 very specific, very detailed prophecies. And it will happen. And indeed happen it did, a couple of hundred years later. Just listen to a quote from not some Bible commentary, but the Secular Historical Encyclopedia Britannica.
Alexander III, in his wars on the Persians after defeating Darius III at the Battle of Issus in 333 BC, marched southwest towards Egypt, calling up the Phoenician cities to open their gates. The citizens of Tyre refused to do so, and Alexander laid siege to the city. Possessing no fleet, he demolished old Tyre, the mainland, and with the debris built a moat 200 feet wide across the straits, separating the old and new towns, erecting towers and war engines at the far end.
Now at the port, Tyre's navy was giving a good fight and preventing Alexander the Great from finishing them off. So what did he do? Exactly what God said he would do in the first prophecy in verse 3. He allies with many other nations who have navies and comes against Tyre. Now listen to what secular historian Philip Myers has to say about what happens next. And keep in mind, if you would, that this man is not a biblical commentator, not a theologian, just a historian recording the facts in a historical textbook.
Alexander the Great reduced Tyre to ruins in 332 BC. She recovered a measure from this blow, but never regained her place she had previously held in the world. The large part of the site of the once great city is now as bare as the top of a rock, a place where the fishermen still spread their nets to dry, which were the precise words used by God in the book of Isaiah to describe the events in the first place.
And to top it all off, remember, prophecy number 7, God said, I will bring you to a horrible end, and you will be no more. You will be sought, but you will never again be found. Do you want to disprove the authenticity of the Bible? Find the remains of Tyre. Good luck. They don't exist. Archaeologists have searched for years and found nothing. And the Bible frequently makes that same kind of challenge to any skeptic. City after city that's been destroyed in the Bible, and God consistently makes the same remarkable claim that they will never be rebuilt, ever. And every time that kind of statement is made about each city, from that point forward in history up to and including today, those areas lie barren. Each one stands as an unarguable testimony against the skeptics. No one has ever rebuilt those cities because God said no one ever will rebuild them. In 1994, the following 3 specific predictions were made by the supposed world's greatest psychics.
Next year, there's going to be a great earthquake that is going to turn Florida into an island.
Whoopi Goldberg is going to leave acting and join a convent.
There will be a national lottery that will cut taxes in half.
Florida, Whoopi, and taxes are still here. In fact, Gene Emery, a science writer, has more or less made a career out of examining, or perhaps a better word would be exposing, the tabloid prophets/psychics. And in his words, they may be a hoot to read, but they've no more ability to predict the future than you or me.
How was the universe created?
Is there really a God?
Can man become God? For thousands of years, man has pondered countless questions about his origin, looking to the stars and planets for answers. Out of the science of astronomy grew the controversial practice of astrology.
Taurus, financial success is yours. Consider investing your money now.
Be cautious in traveling. Make sure that your life insurance policy is up to date.
Many astrologers feel up to 80% of our destiny is determined by the planets under which we were born. Author and researcher John Weldon says he believes the acceptance and influence of astrology in everyday society is perhaps beyond what most of us would believe.
Approximately 30 to 40 million Americans believe in astrology to some extent. It's used by Fortune 500 companies. It's increasingly used by what we might term New Age psychologists. It is taught in some universities. It has, of course, influenced even the White House, and more people, seeing this kind of credibility, are turning to astrology.
For 16 years, Karen Winterburn was a believer in astrology, and for most of that period made her livelihood advising people according to the astrological charts.
I thought this was something that was putting me in touch with God, who I perceived at the time to be an impersonal, cosmic source of energy. The more serious danger is that as you become more and more involved, you become more and more hooked and interested in what is this power that is making this work in my life and the lives of my clients. And then you begin to seek the power behind astrology. And for me, that led into becoming a channeler. You may go to a channeler, but somehow you are seeking the spiritistic power source behind astrology.
Karen says it was obvious to her the charts were not giving her the answers to the questions she and her clients were seeking. And that is not unusual. An extensive 5-year study of thousands of predictions showed those considered the best in the astrological field were, at best, only 10% accurate.
Astrology is condemned in the Bible because it is a form of divination, which Deuteronomy 18 condemns and says is an abomination to God. At the first, it starts out seeming so good. It seems that all this is from God. It seems that this is the truth. And there are endless testimonies from people that thought what they were getting involved in was good, and then it turned sour.
And when I saw the kind of webs of deceit and shambles that my life was in, put that next to the idea that I was becoming God and pretty far along the path, the whole thing just seemed totally ludicrous. Then I was right back there to square one with a pile of sin, 16 years worth of untransmuted karma staring at me. One of the most precious realizations for me at the end of all this was that in having the person and the power of Jesus Christ in my life, I have the real. And we as Christians have to remember that and realize that what we have is what everybody else is looking for in these alternative counterfeit sources. We have the real source of power. We have the real source of enlightenment and source of life in our relationship with Jesus Christ.
And yet people spend billions to hear what these con artists have to say. Now, do you know who these psychics are that you can call on these 900 numbers? They're people hired off the street. So today they're world-class psychics, but yesterday they were sales clerks or teachers or unemployed drifters for that matter. Typically they're given a couple of hours of what's called cold reading training, which basically teaches them enough to pick up on some hints that you might give. And then they're thrown to the phones as experts with just enough so-called ability to convince somebody who wants to be convinced that they can predict their future.
Michael de Nostradam, better known by his Latinized name, Nostradamus, is revered as one of the greatest prophets in history. Many say he had the rare ability to predict future events. But where did he get these premonitions? And just how accurate were they?
Nostradamus is a household name. Hollywood made a motion picture on his life. Thousands of books have been written about his incredible predictions. Tabloids quote him. Let's now take a close look at these incredible prophecies as interpreted from French into English. The invention of the radio and the light bulb.
When the animal is tamed by man after great efforts and difficulty begins to speak, the lightning so harmful to the rod will be taken from the earth and suspended in the air.
The animal in this quatrain is the radio, and the lightning is the light bulb. America actually named in prophecy.
The rule is left to two. They will hold it for a very short time. After 3 years and 7 months, they will go to war. Their vessels rebel against them, the victor born on American soil.
The fact that Nostradamus actually named America in prophecy loses its mystique somewhat when one understands the prophecy was published in 1568, and America was discovered back in 1492. 76 years earlier. In fact, this 15th century globe of the known world proves that America existed at least 50 years before the prophecy was published. The naming of Napoleon. I'm going to